I think you just asked an incredible question.
Your grandfather, Waylon Jennings, helped define outlaw country. Do you think the outlaw spirit today looks different than it did in his era?
You know what? I really don't. I feel like the outlaw spirit has always stayed the outlaw spirit. And I see it coming back more than ever with the blending of genres and people not really staying inside of boxes. And the industry's so cookie cutter that it leaves a lot of room for us to keep that outlaw spirit alive.
If Waylon were alive today and he heard your music, what song of yours do you think he would respect the most?
Wow, that is crazy. There's so many that I think he'd love. I think he would really, off of this album, let's say off this album, I think he would really love Last Name because he was big on don't stand in my shadow, find your own light. And the song is really saying, like, yeah, I'm cut from the cloth of the outlaws before me, but I'm making my own lane.
You've been through prison, the streets, and the music industry. Which one actually taught you the most about people?
Yeah, I think you, I think you just asked an incredible question. They're all the same, you know. There's good people and there's bad people, and you're surrounded by a lot of bad people. And so you got to find the good ones and hold on to them and navigate through all the bullshit. But also, let's add, just, I know it's supposed to be short, but let's add, I think the music industry, when you're in the streets and when you're in prisons, you kind of know people's intentions a lot more than you do in the music industry.
Music that blends country and hip hop has grown a lot in the last decade. What is something about that sound that outsiders still completely misunderstand?
I think people think a lot of times that with country rap, that somebody's trying to do something different, when really it's a feeling inside that comes from the way that we were raised. You know, I started blending country and rap 20 years ago, and it was merely for the fact that I love country music and I love rap. No other reason except that I love the two genres, so it came naturally for me to put the two together.
Your music blends country storytelling with hip-hop energy. Do you ever feel like you're walking between two worlds that don't fully understand each other?
No, I think country and rap are so in tuned. You know, hip-hop was birthed from people telling their story and wanting their voices heard. Same way with country. You know, the country that I listen to is people just telling their real life and connecting to the people that can hold on to that so they know they're not alone. So I think the two worlds are a lot more in tune than people could even imagine.
If you could sit in a room with three artists, dead or alive, to write a song, who would they be and why?
Wow. I think I would probably have, of course I would have Waylon, so I could see him again. And then Tupac, because he was one of my favorite rappers and lyricists. And then maybe we'd throw Bob Dylan in there just to pick on him.
A lot of fans relate to your redemption story. Do you ever feel pressure to live up to the image people have of you now?
Oh, of course. You know, I'm human and far from perfect, but working on it every day. So, you know, it's a responsibility when you're standing in a space that I stand in, where I'm going back and telling people that they can overcome all of the things in their life, and I'm still fighting to overcome daily. So it's a responsibility that I have because I can't fail, or I show them that it's not possible.
Looking back at your life before prison, what was the moment you realized you needed to completely change direction?
You know, it was really while I was sitting in prison, and I was watching the world outside of those walls crumble. Everything that I thought that I had built, you know, when I was in the streets and I was doing the things that landed me in prison, I was doing them with the false reality to justify it by saying I was doing it for the family. But then my family became the biggest victim of everything. They were out there to fend for their own without a father, without a husband, without a son, without a brother. And so everybody that I thought that I was doing the things that I was doing to feed and to protect and to give them a better life, their life got way worse. So that was kind of a realization that was like, man, I'd have been way better off working a 9 to 5 and us barely getting by than trying to build something that was going to be torn down anyway.
You've worked with Jelly Roll several times. What's something about him behind the scenes that fans would be surprised by?
Well, that's an understatement. We haven't worked together a few times. We've been best friends for 25 years, built our whole careers together. Man, I think a lot of people don't get to see his silly side as much because he's really low-key a comedian. And also his passionate side. I mean, people get to see his passionate side. You know, you see him cry and on stage and give these big speeches. But beneath all of that, he's just a regular guy.
If the music industry disappeared tomorrow, what kind of work do you think you would be doing?
Probably start an OnlyFans. If I didn't have 4 daughters. If it all went to shit tomorrow, and I know I can't go back to what I was doing before, I would probably, I have a strong passion for cooking. I actually apprenticed under a chef for a few years and did some culinary stuff in prison as well. And I love to cater. Like anytime anybody has a baby shower or a birthday party, I do these huge spreads and these crazy charcuterie boards. And so I would probably open a restaurant, do some catering, do some event planning, because I love being the life of the party.
Your songs often talk about faith, struggle, and redemption. Has your relationship with faith changed as your career grew?
No, I think it got stronger. You know, the reality is where my faith is and what it's grounded in is God's will. And to stand in prayer, believe that whatever's going to happen is supposed to, and that when things don't go as planned, a lot of times they become bigger blessings. You know, I look back and some of my things that I thought were tragic or failures ended up being really big blessings, and they were saving me from something that I wasn't ready for or didn't need to do. So I feel like it's gotten stronger because I take the wins as blessings and I take the losses as blessings. So standing in faith has been the one thing that leads to no disappointment.
When you perform live, what moment in the show reminds you why you started doing music in the first place?
There's a lot of those moments in my show because my show's a roller coaster of emotions. But there's this one point where I strip down, it gets real quiet, and I do this freestyle, and or I do this one rap verse a cappella, and it's the only verse that I wrote when I was in prison. And because when I went into prison, when I got into county jail, I was writing a bunch of songs, and then when I got to prison, I was like, I could feel all these emotions that weren't real bleeding through the songs. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on myself during this time. And then when I get out, I'll tell the story. But there was one verse that I wrote when I just needed that therapy, and I do it at every show. And when I do it, I'll watch the crowd stop, cry, cheer, and it's just that connection for that 60 seconds reminds me why I'm even in this.
The outlaw country movement was about rebellion against Nashville. Do you think artists today are rebelling against the industry or just trying to fit in?
We got both. You got a lot of cosplay outlaws that are running around trying to act like they're bucking the system, but they're just a part of it, sitting there. The labels will dress them up and let them do things to look like outlaws all the time. You can tell by the music and you can tell by the decisions they make and who they're around if they're really an outlaw.
What's the hardest truth about fame that nobody talks about?
I think the hardest part about fame that nobody really discusses is just it's lonely. I mean, we're surrounded by a lot of people. A lot of times you don't know what people's intentions are. And some people get super secluded, They deal with a lot of anxiety and stuff. I still like to go to the grocery store. I'll take a bunch of pictures and stuff, but I still like to get out and move because I love my community and I love people and I love meeting the fans. But I know for a lot of people, it's the seclusion and they isolate out of fear. And I've watched some of the greatest guys break down from that.
If you could go back and give your younger self one sentence of advice before everything went wrong, what would it be?
It's all part of the story. Just keep moving, make the best decision that you can, and it's all going to work out. There's a lot of times I almost gave up and threw the towel in, but in reality, all that stuff that I went through just made for a stronger testimony for me to be able to go back now into prisons and on stage and connect with people on a different level.
Is there a song you wrote that was almost too personal to release?
Oh, yeah. There's been a handful of songs that I've written that were almost super too personal to release, The one that I did about the mother of my kids that died from an overdose. I mean, it literally took me a box of Kleenex and a bottle of tequila to even get through rapping those vocals. One that I did years ago, I'd done the hook with a girl named Julie Roberts, and it was about my daughters. And at the time, I was fighting for custody for them, and I literally had that song for 6 months before I could even write the verses, because every time the hook would even play, I would just break down, And then on this new album, Garden of Stones, I remember I brought that song home, and my family was like, who writes their own funeral song? It's like how I really feel. And that's what music has been for me. It's been therapy, and it's been a way for me to release and get some of that crazy that's in my head out. And so I'm not just letting it fester and living with it.
What does success actually look like to you now compared to what you thought it looked like 10 years ago?
Well, when you're first getting into the industry and you have all these big dreams, and it's like, a lot of times you'll look at success as being awards or sold out stadiums. And for some people that is, it depends on what your goal is. But I think the older you get and the more you do this and the different things the different goals that you achieve, you kind of find that really it's all about the journey, not the destination. So for me, success, there's no monetary number. There's no show attendance. There's no golden award. For me, success is just doing this, showing my kids that they can do what they love and be successful at it, and just, being able to keep my soul and my family intact and my relationships intact and do what I love to do.
The world feels pretty divided right now. Do you think music still has the power to bring people together?
I think music's the only thing that has the power to bring people together. Even the movies are getting so geared one way or the other, and I think music is the one place where we can all agree, and of course you have your music that leans one way or the other, but real music should be meant for everybody, because we all go through the same struggles, and we can fight over this or that, but we all want the same thing.
What is a lesson that you learned from your family legacy that you did not fully understand until you got older?
For a long time, I thought that I had to prove something, because there were so many people looking at me because I was Waylon's grandson, and they expected me to be this way or that way. And when you really look at it, Waylon's legacy is the complete opposite. He was just himself, and they said he wasn't country when he first came out, and he was too rock and roll. And, so I think I was blessed to be able to fall into a legacy that was just about being your true self.
If your entire life story became a movie one day, what would the title be?
Oh, shit. Well, you know, we've thrown that idea around, and I think it would just be I am struggle, you know. But it could be, oh, fuck, what the hell did he do? What's he got himself into today? Did that just happen? Yeah, there could be a lot of titles.